the top of the climb, Hanson rolled inverted and looked down. 14 Japanese fighters were below him in a loose formation, searching. The Japanese formation was scattered across 5,000 ft of altitude. They had lost sight of Hanson during his vertical climb. Some were circling at 3,000 ft. Others had climbed to 7,000. The tactical discipline had collapsed. They were no longer a formation. They were individual hunters searching for prey. Hanson had altitude advantage again, $7,000 ft above the lowest group of Japanese fighters. In aerial combat, altitude was life. The pilot with altitude could choose when to engage, could dive to attack, or climb to escape. He rolled right and dove on the nearest zero. The Japanese pilot never saw him coming. Hanson's dive brought him in from the 0-6 now high, the blind spot. By the time the Zero pilot detected the threat, Hanson was at 300 YD and firing. The 650 caliber machine guns fired at a combined rate of 4,800 rounds per minute, 80 rounds per second. At 300 YD with proper convergence, those 80 rounds per second concentrated into a space smaller than a bathtub. The Zero disintegrated. The right wing folded upward. The fuselage broke in half. Pieces tumbled through the sky. No parachute appeared. 2 down, 19 remaining. But now every Japanese pilot knew exactly where Hanson was. A lone Corsair diving through their formation. Tracers converged from 3 directions. Hanson pulled hard left. The G-forces crushed him into his seat. 4 Gs. 5. The edges of his vision went gray. 3 Zeros were pursuing. Hanson leveled off and accelerated. 400 MCI. 410. The Zeros could not keep pace. The distance opened. 500 YD 600. But 4 more Zeros were climbing to cut him off. They had anticipated his escape vector. Hanson saw them at 800 YD, climbing from below and ahead. Classic pincer movement. 3 behind, 4 ahead. 7 fighters total converging on 1 Corsair. Hanson pulled into a vertical climb again. The Corsair had better power-to-weight ratio than the Zero below 10,000 IFAT. He could outclimb them if he maintained speed. The altimeter unwound. 8,000 fars, 9,000, 10,000. The 4 Zeros ahead were still climbing to intercept. They were at 11,000 wider. Hanson was at 10,500 and climbing. The geometry was closing. 700 YD, 600, 500. At 450 yards, both formations opened fire simultaneously. Tracers filled the space between them. Hanson's rounds hit the lead Zero in the engine. The Japanese fighter rolled left and fell away, trailing smoke. 3 down, 18 remaining. But returned fire from the 3 remaining Zeros ahead, stitched across Hanson's Corsair. 1 round punched through the instrument panel. Glass exploded across the cockpit. Another round hit the right wing, tearing a 2-foot hole in the fabric-covered control surface. A third round hit the armor plate behind Hanson's seat. The plate held. Hanson rolled inverted and dove again. The 3 Zeros ahead tried to follow, could not match his roll rate. He came out of the dive heading south at 300 September. The Japanese formation was reforming below him. 15 fighters. They had given up the scattered pursuit. Now they were forming a defensive circle. Standard Japanese tactic, mutual support. Any attacker diving on one fighter would immediately come under fire from the others in the circle. Hanson climbed a 12,000 passive circle the Japanese formation at a distance. Evaluating. The bomber strike on Simpson Harbor was complete. The TBF Avengers were heading back toward Bougainville. The other 7 Corsairs from Hanson's squadron were with them. The mission was accomplished. The bombers were safe. Tactical doctrine said Hanson should disengage, rejoin the bombers, escort them home. He had already shot down 3 enemy fighters, disrupted their attack, protected the strike force, but 15 Japanese fighters were still airborne, still a threat to any American aircraft in the area. Hanson checked his ammunition counter. He had fired approximately 800 rounds, 1,600 rounds remaining, enough for 2 more extended engagements. He rolled the Corsair over and dove toward the Japanese circle. The Japanese defensive circle was rotating counterclockwise at 8,315 fighters, maintaining spacing of approximately 200 YD between each aircraft. Standard Imperial Navy doctrine developed in China, refined over New Guinea. When one fighter came under attack, the fighter behind would immediately have a clear shot at the attacker. American pilots called it the Lubery Circle, a death trap for any fighter that committed to an attack on a single target. The mathematics were brutal. Engage one fighter, get shot by the next one in the circle. Hanson dove toward the circle from 12,000 to count up 4,000 feet of altitude advantage, speed building through 400 meters. But this time, he was not targeting a single fighter. He was targeting the geometry of the circle itself. At 1,000 YD from the circle, Hanson adjusted his dive angle. Instead of diving through the circle perpendicular to its rotation, he dove at a tangent. His attack vector was aligned with the circle's direction of rotation. He would pass through the formation moving in the same direction as the Japanese fighters, not against them. The relative closure rate dropped from 800 mph to less than 200. At 600 YD, the Japanese pilot spotted him. The circle began to break. Too late. Hanson was already firing. His 6 machine guns targeted the nearest Zero. The convergence point was perfect. The Zero's cockpit disintegrated. The fighter went inverted and fell. 4 down, 17 remaining. Hanson pulled out of his dive inside the circle. Instead of climbing away, he rolled level and accelerated along the same path as the rotating fighters. He was now part of their formation, flying with them, not against them. The tactical geometry had inverted. The Japanese fighters behind Hanson in the circle could not fire without hitting their own aircraft ahead. The fighters ahead could not turn back to engage without colliding with the fighters behind them. Hanson had 3 seconds before the formation collapsed completely. He selected the 0200 YD ahead, fired a 2-cond burst. The Zero's left wing separated from the fuselage. The fighter snap rolled right and went into a flat spin. 5 down, 16 remaining. The Japanese circle shattered. Fighters broke in every direction. 3 rolled left, 4 rolled right. The remaining 9 scattered vertically. The mutual support had collapsed. The formation had become a furball. Individual fighters maneuvering independently. Hanson pulled into a climbing turn. 2 Zeros were on his tail at 400 YD. Closing. He rolled inverted, pulled through, rolled upright again. The split S standard evasive maneuver, but executed at high speed with minimal altitude loss. The 2 Zeros followed. They had better turning performance, but lower roll rate. The distance held at 350 YD. Hanson spotted another Zero ahead. Unaware of his presence, he fired from 500 YD. Long range, low probability, but 3 rounds hit the Zero's tail section. The vertical stabilizer tore away. The Zero went into an uncontrolled yaw and dove toward the ocean. 6 down, 15 remaining. But now 5 Japanese fighters had formed a loose gaggle behind Hanson. Not a proper formation, just 5 pilots converging on the same target. The lead Zero was at 300 yards and firing. Tracers walked up Hanson's left side. 1 round hit the canopy rail. Another punctured the fuselage behind the cockpit. A third hit the left main landing gear door. Hanson felt the Corsair shudder. The hydraulic system was leaking. Red fluid streamed along the fuselage. He pushed the throttle to maximum continuous power. Not war emergency power, not yet. He needed to preserve the engine. The temperature gauge was already climbing. The coolant system had taken damage. The 5Z pursued. They were maintaining formation now, proper tactical discipline. One would engage while the others provided cover. If Hanson turned to engage the attacker, the others would have clear shots. The altimeter read 7,000 septudiber. Hanson was descending. The Zeros were forcing him down, reducing his altitude advantage. In another $3,000 FT, he would be at their optimal fighting altitude 4,000 altitude, where the Zero superior maneuverability would dominate. The lead Zero fired again, a long burst, 20 rounds. Hanson saw the tracers and broke hard right. The G-forces crushed him into a seat. 6 Gs, 7. His vision tunneled. Gray crept in from the edges. The rounds missed, but now a second Zero was in firing position. 280 YD behind Hanson and tracking. The ammunition counter read 900 rounds remaining. The second Zero fired from 280 YD. A 3-second burst. 18 rounds. Hanson rolled left. The tracers passed through the space his Corsair had occupied 1 second earlier. He reversed the roll and pulled into a climbing turn. The 5 Zeros followed. They were coordinating now. One would attack while the others maintained position. When Hanson maneuvered to evade, another would be in position to fire. Classic pursuit tactics. Rotate the attack. Keep constant pressure. Force the target to maneuver continuously. Bleed off energy. Reduce speed and altitude until the target had no options remaining. Hanson understood the geometry. He had studied Japanese tactics, had flown against them 21 times in 17 days. The solution was not evasion. The solution was aggression. He pulled into a vertical climb. The airspeed dropped. 310 ms over 290, 270. The 50 climbed with him. They were lighter. They climbed faster. The distance closed. 400 YD, 350, 300. At the apex of his climb, Hanson rolled inverted and pulled through the hammerhead turn. The Corsair hung vertical for half a second, then fell nose down.